Thank you, Yvette, very much. So to begin our lesson for our celebration of Earth Day this year, I would like to share with you the Earth Care Covenant that we as a ministry affirmed and signed back on Sunday, April 23rd of 2017. I know that there are some who are newer to the ministry, so for those who may not be familiar with what the Unity Earth Care program is, it is a program sponsored by Unity Worldwide Ministries, where churches and their congregations are invited into intentional practices that serve to honor the earth and to do our part to be responsible caregivers as a means of protecting the earth's sustainability. Back at the church, you may have seen the Earth Care information in the hallway. There are three framed documents on the wall that attest to the three levels of certification required in order for a church to become a Unity Earth Care congregation. And then on the table, right below those documents, there are some brochures and flyers that we created that have within them just a whole lot of different things that each of us can do individually in addition to what we do collectively as a ministry to again just to do our part to offer care to the planet. That was a process that took us about 18 months to complete. We received our full certification at the end of the year in 2018. And so here is the covenant that we first signed 3 years ago and one that we reaffirm today. Our consciousness reveals that all of creation is connected as one. The story of creation reveals that we are to be good caregivers of the creation. As a people of faith, we commit to a renewed reverence for life and respect for the interdependent web of all existence. We honor our spiritual commitment to the care, support, and defense of the balance between individual needs and those of nature. We envision a world in which everything has intrinsic value and where all beings are assured a secure and meaningful life that is ecologically responsible and sustainable. We agree to transform our individual and congregational lives into acts of moral witness, discarding harmful habits for new behaviors that demonstrate our respect for this harmony and interconnectedness. We declare our covenant with God to walk upon the earth for the greatest good of all creation. And again, we adopted that as a community back in April of 2017. And those words, they say an awful lot, of course, and as I was rereading them in preparation for today, they struck a chord in me that I hadn't felt before. And if you saw our promotions, you saw that the title for our lesson today is Ho'oponopono for Earth Day. And when I started to refresh my own memory on this practice that comes from ancient Hawaiian tradition, and then began viewing that through its application to the earth, then that's when I saw some of the words in the covenant touching me in ways that I had not realized 3 years ago. I just hadn't personalized it enough back then, I suppose. And the specific words were those of the opening statement, the statement that said, our consciousness reveals that all of creation is connected as one. And the personalization of those words for me, it struck me as I began to apply them to what underlies the basic premise and tenets of Ho'oponopono. So let's start there. Let's just look at some of the history of the practice and the tenets that we're invited to embrace as we use it in our own lives. And so the practice, as it was offered to me several years ago and that I'm drawing upon today, is one, as I mentioned a moment ago, that has its roots in ancient Hawaiian traditions. The word itself means to set things right. To set things right and do so in morally correct ways. The main objective of the Ho'oponopono practice is to consciously channel negative energies into positive outcomes for self and for community. One of the basic tenets of Ho'oponopono is that our consciousness is a sum total. It's a sum total of all which that has been held in consciousness and passed down to us by our ancestors from one generation to the next. It also holds that everything that happens is not anything out there. It holds that everything we see, everything we hear, every person we meet, every interaction we have, we experience all of that in our minds. And what that equates to, of course, is our being responsible for everything that we think, everything we let in that comes to our attention. And so you think about this in today's world, not only are we carrying around with us the thoughts of that are associated with generations of ancestry, but we're constantly receiving new information. New things are always coming to our attention from other people, from print media, or the internet, the news, any number of sources, right? And all of that is taking up residence in our consciousness, unless we decide that we don't want it to be there. There's a Hawaiian healer whose name is Morna Nalamaku Simeona. And she wrote, if we can accept that we are the sum total of all past thoughts, emotions, words, deeds, and actions, and that our present lives and choices are colored or shaded by this memory bank of the past, then we begin to see how a process of correcting or setting aright can change our lives, our families, and society. So these basic tenets are why that opening phrase to our Earth Care Covenant started to feel different for me this year, because I think I had been looking out there too much as I thought about our planet. I could look out there and I could see things like smog or pollution or littering or any number of things like that, and their various causes for how they came to be. And I could also look out there and see a lot of steps being taken to ease or mitigate things like that and others. I could look around our church home or my personal home, and I saw things that we did or I did, all these outer actions that we've been taking to be more environmentally aware, to be better stewards of our earth. And while, of course, there's nothing wrong with that, there's absolutely nothing wrong with taking actions to set things right in a morally correct way, what I hadn't done, and what Ho'oponopono invites all of us to do, is to look within first. To look within first, to take a very concerted and deep inventory of our consciousness, of our own consciousness, and what it might be holding as it pertains to the responsibility that we individually have to our planet. See, the Hawaiian traditions, they figured this out long time ago. I was reading an article on the website that's called upliftconnect.com, which offered some of what I'm offering today. And part of what it offered was how the Hawaiians have long practiced care for oneself and very healthy living. It noted that they have long understood that the well-being of the individual, the community, and the land are interdependent on healthy symbiotic relationships. And then it went on to say that the responsibility of caring for oneself includes honoring our ancestors, looking out for future generations, and living from a place of integrity. Striving to live from authentic integrity often brings challenges, fears, disagreements with family or relatives, colleagues and employers, and sometimes even bitter confrontations. And we see that happening, today. When we think about the environment, we think about care of this earth, there are at times bitter confrontations taking place, between those who wish to bring forth some sort of change and those who don't think there are any problems at all to address. And it's not just the usual difference of sides across the political spectrum that we have, or it's not just the differences between two businesses who choose operations in different ways. There are differences that are drilling down to be between colleagues, to exist between friends, neighbors, and members of our own families. But the Hawaiian traditions, again, they don't dwell on those differences and challenges. Instead, they have used this practice of ho'oponopono to resolve those situations and to bring harmony back to them. And before that can happen in the community, before that can happen for the earth, it has to happen in the self. So let's look at this very personal, very internal practice of ho'oponopono. Now, the practice itself consists of 4 steps. There are 4 very short statements that are made, whether you speak them, think them, feel them, write them down, however you want to go about it. And they each represent a particular quality. And those qualities are humility, forgiveness, gratitude, and love. And each of them, they're used as a means of bringing healing about, but it's healing to the person doing the practice. See, remember, it's all about making things right with us first, individually first, so that then we can start to bring about the right out there, outside of us, including to our planet. So the first statement is, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. And in Ho'oponopono, that is not a statement of right or wrong. It is a statement of humility. I'm sorry. It's an act of humility, because it's about recognizing that even when we have the very best intentions at heart, even though we feel that we are being our authentic selves and we are standing firmly and comfortably in our own integrity, we can still hurt someone else. It could be 100% inadvertent on our part, but it happens just the same. I mean, who hasn't done that a time or two, or been on the receiving end of it a time or two? We're all human. We're all human, and we can speak or act in ways that we had no idea would have the outcome that they did. Think perhaps to an email you have written, or a letter you've written, or something that you've posted on a social media platform, or just said to another person, and the ways that your words have been interpreted by others that are nowhere near what you intended to convey, right? It happens. And what Ho'oponopono tells us is that it's important to acknowledge that that has happened, that there has been hurt, regardless of our intention, and without trying to make someone else wrong. And when we say those words intentionally and from our heart, I'm sorry, that's what it does. It acknowledges that the hurt has occurred. And then we're invited to see that experience and use it as an opportunity to re-examine how it is we view our authentic self. To go back and look at maybe the core values that we have established in our lives as a foundation for how we conduct our lives. And as we do that re-examination and that discernment, we open ourselves so that we can have come into our awareness. Anything that isn't reflective of or an alignment of who we want to be or who we think we are, anything that might have contributed to the hurt of someone else. And then as those things do come into our conscious awareness, we go through the practice of releasing them. We just release them and let them go, and invite into our next opportunity the choice for different words. The next step, the next phrase you would say is, please forgive me. Please forgive me. You've likely heard it said before, that forgiveness, asking for forgiveness, is one of the most freeing acts that we can experience. It's one of the most freeing experiences in our lives. And that freedom comes whether or not the other person actually offers the forgiveness we've asked for. Asking for it, just asking for it, frees us, because in doing so, we're saying we've done all we can do. We've done all we can do to bring resolve, to bring harmony, to bring resolution to the situation. As that saying goes, the ball's now in someone else's court. And so we're now free. We're free from it and open to the potential for reconciliation to occur. Now, when it comes to asking for forgiveness, The Ho'oponopono practice encourages us to offer it in more extensive ways as well. To move beyond just the particular situation that is front and center in our awareness. And we can also call that the Charles Fillmore practice of forgiveness. Because our co-founder, Charles Fillmore, he had a forgiveness practice that he used every single night before he went to sleep. He would sit there and he would ask for forgiveness from anyone, known or unknown to him, that he had offended in any way, ever, ever, not just that day, not just the past week or the past 30 days. He asked for forgiveness for anything and everything that he had ever done to anyone at any time in his life up to that point. I mean, he covered his bases, when it came to asking for forgiveness. But you think about that for a moment. When we use the more expansive languaging, and we invite the universe into the process to take care of what we may not be remembering, what we may not even be aware of at that time, we're partnering with the universe, we're partnering with God, and allowing it to take care of what is unknown to us in that moment. And it's no different than when we ask for prayer. Sometimes we ask for a very specific prayer, but before we close the prayer, or as we close the prayer, we say this or something better, right? This or something better. So always leave that door open just a little bit for spirit to be a partner with us and doing more with us and for us than we can ever be aware of on our own. And so now it takes us to step 3, or phrase number 3, which is thank you. Thank you. I wanted to ask this morning if anybody has offered a thank you for, say, a divorce, from a spouse, or for having had a termination of your job, or what else could I think of in the moment here? Betrayal. Say somebody's betrayed you that was close to you. Or in the current day, has anybody been saying thank you to COVID-19? See, I think that it would be fairly safe for me to say this morning that many of us have offered a thank you to the things that were in that first listing of scenarios that I offered. We've offered thank you to those in hindsight. In hindsight, once they've passed, once we've vented our anger or did whatever we needed to do to vent, once we took time to heal, then we were able to look back and, oh yeah, really clearly see, some things to be grateful for that have come out of that experience and because of where we find ourselves now after time has passed. It's not always as easy to say thank you in the moment, especially moments like what we're moving through today. But I invite you to listen to a perspective offered when considering thank you as a part of the practice of Ho'oponopono. It came from the same website that I referenced earlier. And it said that gratitude is one of the most powerful ways to open the gates of humility and the ability to receive even more life lessons. Demonstrating gratitude for painful situations or challenges communicates that we are accepting our reality and learning and growing from it. We are emerging stronger and wiser for having weathered the storm. I was talking to a congregant a couple of weeks ago now, and she was sharing with me how she had been working really, really hard to see the good in our current situation. How she was trying to focus on the gifts coming forth out of this COVID-19 experience, and also just being grateful for all the good that she could see she already had in her life all around her. And she went on to share that it had been a bit of a back and forth kind of process. There were some days that were a lot easier than other days, to see the good or to be grateful. And Ho'oponopono recognizes that. This practice is not a, say these 4 phrases once and you're done and all is well kind of practice. Everyone who I've ever read who is more of an expert on the practice, any teacher I've ever been with who has been, teaching the practice, have all agreed that this is a practice that has to be done every single day. It has to be done for significant numbers of days, periods of time, in order to have those ebbs and flows lessen in frequency and also in the severity that they can sometimes bring. And one thing I have found for myself in doing this practice, several years ago, and that I continue to do today, is that I say this phrase of thank you first. See, there's no hard and fast rule as to the order in which you do these steps. When I was reading several articles and researching for this morning, there were many who had very different ordering of the phrases as they presented it. So it's whatever feels right and feels good for you. And for me, to say thank you first to a difficult situation, that's a way that I can immediately start to hold thoughts that acknowledge that it's there, that acknowledge that something has happened and it is now before me, instead of allowing space for thoughts to come in that would be more filled with anger or resentment or resistance or fear. And so with a clearer mind, if you will, then I'm able to enter into that situation with a heart that's as open as it can possibly be, to learning what it's come to teach me, to experience the growth in ways that apparently I am ready to experience. Otherwise, it would have had no reason to present itself to me. So perhaps that's something that you can consider trying, for yourself, whether it is doing the thank you first or reordering these phrases. When the next time you find yourself, have something of challenge, come into your awareness and into your experience. And so the last phrase of the practice is, I love you. I love you. I mean, good old love. I mean, last week, what did we say about love? We said it was the most powerful force on the earth, right? And some of the ways that love is defined within Unity, in one of our reference books that's called The Revealing Word, it says in part that love is that which binds together the whole human family. It refers to love as a harmonizer. It calls love a healing energy. And Ho'oponopono agrees with that as well. Part of how it's defined in this practice is that it is the energy that connects us all. But then it also goes on to say that it is what animates us, this love. And we're talking that pure, unconditional God love in us. It's what animates us to take care of ourselves, to take care of our community, and to take care of the land. To say these words, to say, I love you, whether a part of this practice or otherwise, that's how we can accomplish things that are real and that have long-lasting value. They're not going to be here one day and gone the next. When we imbue what we do with love, that's when things become more permanent and lasting and of great value. And that's why all 4 steps of this Ho'oponopono practice are very, very important. Because if we're going to continue walking around with our consciousness filled with unresolved matters, with burdens, with wounds, with ancestral history that is no longer congruent with how we are today, then we're blocking the ability of that love in us to come forth and begin to offer its healing and restorative energy. Our consciousness reveals that all of creation is connected as one. On this celebration of Earth Day, we're being invited to see that all of creation includes the earth, not just the creation that is on the earth, but the earth itself. And Ho'oponopono is asking us to intently and honestly look at our own consciousness, nobody else's. I'll focus on mine, you focus on yours, to see if that truth, that spiritual truth, our oneness with the earth, reveals itself to us or not. And if not, if that is something that doesn't ring true for you and you would really like it to do so, well, now you have a practice. You have a process to support you in order to get that clarity that you seek about thoughts, beliefs, behaviors, ancestral influences, things out there, anything at all that might be standing in the way of your honoring, truly, authentically honoring this spiritual principle of oneness. You have a practice of I'm sorry, please forgive me, thank you, I love you. Let those words spoken to this beautiful Mother Earth help strengthen our covenant with God to walk upon the earth for the greatest good of all creation. God bless you. So now we'll move into our time of offering. And this morning, maybe just having that extra oomph of gratitude for the abundance that is all around us on this planet Earth, the many ways that it supports us, and the many ways that we can also support it in return. And as we do that, I again want to extend my gratitude to everyone, my appreciation for all for the financial support that's being offered to the ministry during this time that we are away from the campus itself. You know, we've seen an increase in our online giving options and some automatic recurring gifts being set up. We're getting the gifts sent to us through the mail, and each and every one of them, believe me, when I receive all of those in that one day at the office, every one of them is blessed with such appreciation and gratitude. It's something that I find it difficult to really put into words as to what that means to me and to all of us as a ministry. So if you have a gift there in your hands, or a gift there with you, please take it in your hands. And if not, just hold what you plan to give otherwise in your hearts. And we always know and affirm that each and every gift that's given from the heart does have the power to transform lives. Every gift carrying with it the power to continue the forward movement of our mission to live truth principles that transform lives and transform this world. And so it's from that place that I now offer for all of us our offertory blessing. God is my source, and I give generously of my abundance in all forms. I live a consciousness of prosperity, and I joyfully step into the flow of giving and receiving. I believe that every moment offers a gift. There's one to give or one to receive. And so I give thanks for the prosperity in my life, and I celebrate the unlimited possibilities present in every moment. And so it is. Amen.